Disclaimer, this video is very closely tied to my previous video, which focused on how Spider-Man Homecoming is not a Peter Parker movie, but rather a Miles Morales movie instead. I strongly suggest you watch it prior to this video, as a lot of the points I'll be touching on tie back to the previous video. Spider-Man Homecoming is not a Peter Parker movie, it's a Miles Morales movie. This doesn't make it a bad movie, it's still great and well made, however the very foundations of that movie are all taken from Miles Morales comics. From the way he gets his suit, to Ned Leeds being a blatant ripoff of Genki Lee, to even the scene with Vulture being Liz's dad. There's no other reason than not wanting to feature Miles Morales, a mixed-race superhero, as the lead of a live-action Spider-Man movie. Homecoming was the perfect opportunity for that. His very DNA is in the structure of that movie. To talk about how the movie would have been different had he been in it would be redundant because it would absolutely not change. So today I'm going to talk about what changes could have been made to that movie to make it a Peter Parker movie. Taking elements from, believe it or not, Peter's comics and using them here. This is how Spider-Man Homecoming could have been a Peter Parker movie. Firstly, his costume. The Spider-Man Homecoming suit is a weird choice. It is essentially an Iron Man suit on the inside and a Spider-Man suit on the outside, so it feels like the writers are trying to give us Iron Man Jr. When it comes to the practical use of the abilities, the one time the suit would be most useful is when Peter needs to open the door to the damage control vault and it can't help. He has to enter every single possible sequence until it opens. What's the point of having a stock AI if it can't even crack a code? But the suit saved his life! Vulture dropped him and the parachute saved him! No, the parachute didn't change anything. If anything, it made it worse. The parachute practically swallowed him as he sank into the river. Tony himself had to come and save Peter. There is no reason why Peter couldn't have developed some of this equipment himself. The spider tracers, the web grenades, the underarm webbing. But he's just a kid, he couldn't develop all of that himself. The guy is clearly shown making web fluid in class. He's smart enough to take apart that suit and hack into it. He's clearly very capable. A GPS tracker that he could shoot out through his web shooter isn't too difficult to come by when you can buy that same tech for dog collars nowadays. So immediately take away the functions he doesn't need, like the AI, the enhanced interrogation mode, and yes, the instant kill mode that Tony Stark gave a 15-year-old for some reason. Why did he do this? I don't know. It feels like another joke Marvel put in their movies without thinking of the real implications here. See Age of Ultron Prima Nocta joke.
I will be reinstituting Prima Nocta.
Not only that though, but none of the bells and whistles on that suit advance the plot. Peter traces Vulture with a spider tracer, which again, he could have made himself. He could have easily figured out the Chitauri energy core was explosive by finding one in the vault under dangerous explosive, and the boat scene could have utilized his spider sense instead of the AI telling him what to do. He does not need the level of tech he has in that suit. It is counterintuitive to the idea of setting a Spider-Man story at high school level when you have an advanced AI and all this tech. It would be far more interesting if Peter had to rely on himself. You know, like he did in the final act. The movie's point shouldn't be to prove to us that he can be Spider-Man without his tech. That should be a given. Next, his friends. Scrap Ned Leeds. Sorry. No matter what you do, you can't get around the Genki of it all. There's no justifying that character. Use Mary Jane, not Michelle Jones, in his place. Keep Zendaya obviously, but have MJ as Peter's friend since childhood. You know, the version from the Ultimate Comics that everyone claims Homecoming is based off, in which she was the first person he tells he's Spider-Man. Having them be teenage nerds together would be adorable. Given Zendaya's tiny role in Homecoming, the movie would barely change if you swap out Ned with her. It lets their eventual relationship develop a lot more naturally and have them grow closer to each other once she finds out about Peter's identity. Lastly, just a weird thought, maybe put Dr. Connors in there too?
Oh, Dr. Connors!
I know that's retreading old ground, but just making him a teacher doesn't harm anyone. Just don't change Flash. He's perfect.
Are you really friends with Peter Parker?
The villain plot. So, if you're unaware, but you probably aren't, Peter's love interest in Spider-Man Homecoming is Liz Allen, who upon showing up to take her to prom, he realizes her father is the bad guy he's been chasing the whole movie, the Vulture. Womp womp. I mentioned in my previous video how this takes from a Miles Morales story where, guess what? His girlfriend's parents are members of Hydra. Scary. This was the hardest thing to get around because this whole twist is honestly really good. You pay no mind to who Liz's parents are until you're faced with the reality of it. How can you make this closer to a Peter comic? Simple. You make it about Aunt May. In The Amazing Spider-Man issue 131, Doc Ock wants to marry Aunt May. This is often used as an example of a goofy Spider-Man story, but the MCU is great at taking what can be considered goofy and turning it around. So instead of the twist being Liz's dad is the Vulture, have Aunt May hit it off with a parent of one of the kids who goes to Peter's school, only for Pete to realize, oh shit, that's the Vulture, and find out he was at the school because he was scoping out the Chitauri energy core from earlier in the movie. You can even keep the great car sequence, but swap out Liz for Aunt May and Adrian Toomes taking Peter to MJ's house to pick her up for the homecoming dance, and have her say to Peter something like, I got a call from your teacher saying you disappeared in DC, then have Vulture start to build his suspicions from that. This makes the dilemma of fighting Vulture worse, because it puts Peter directly in conflict with Aunt May's happiness. Then, after the final fight, have Peter comfort May, who feels like she's cursed when it comes to this stuff. This also adds Uncle Ben's presence into the movie. You could have her talk about this being the best she's felt since Ben, and having Peter stop Vulture would not only cause her pain, but also force him to live with the consequences, as opposed to Liz moving away as soon as it's over. I do love the Liz twist, but this one sticks better. Peter Parker trying his best but still hurting the ones he loves is such a Spider-Man trope, and it would go a long way to making the movie feel more like a Peter Parker movie. Yes, Homecoming does a similar thing, however Liz leaves like 3 minutes after, so there are virtually no consequences for his actions. Living with May after he beats up her boyfriend and exposes him as a crook would be so heartbreaking. When it comes to Uncle Ben being avoided as he was in Homecoming, I agree with the screenwriters on that you don't need to show his death or have the movie beat you over the head with it. That being said though, a line here or there wouldn't hurt. The best example is when Peter refers to everything May has been through to Genki. Sorry, Ned. The line I would have used is, since we lost my uncle. It may seem a bit more expository, but it would flesh out the relationships more. Having Peter refer to the death of Uncle Ben as everything she's been through is offensive to the idea that he also lost his uncle as much as she lost her husband. They're both dealing with it. That's how easy it could have been to make Homecoming a Peter Parker movie. As for the future movies, there isn't much they can do to course correct. You can't take away the fact that the first movie stole so much from Miles Morales that now this is a strange amalgamation of two different Spider-Man, and people are responding well to this version, mostly because the movie is good, and it is, but what they've done is pretty dodgy. There are a few things they can do to get fans who aren't interested in this Peter Morales approach they've used so far though. Number 1, make MJ Mary Jane. Yep, here I go again. I don't think anyone would really care if it was revealed Michelle lied about her name. Maybe she was embarrassed by it. Maybe she just used an alias. She said her friends call her MJ, so you just have her say that she was Mary Jane all along. You don't need to dye her hair red or even have her be a model. You can make her a reporter like in the PS4 game. It works. But this Michelle Jones Mary Jane Watson guessing game is such a mess and they need to commit or move on. For a universe that strives to be accurate and faithful to the comics, this is a shit show. You could even have her use Mary Jane Watson as a stage name. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. Number 2, move away from the high-tech suits. I spoke about this earlier, but I really do not care about seeing Spider-Man as Iron Man Jr. Make him test himself full-time by letting him make his own suit with limited tech, see Spider-Man PS4, and the stakes get higher immediately. You feel it more when he gets hit or when he's in danger. He has no magic trick up his sleeve to pull out when the plot demands it. Also, it's really annoying that the classic Ditko Spider-Man design comes from Tony Stark in this universe. That's Peter's imagination showing, and it's another part of the character ripped away to make him cooler for audiences. Number 3, talk about Uncle Ben. Shocker, I know, but this guy is the reason Peter feels he needs to be Spider-Man. They need to quit ignoring him because it comes off as them being embarrassed. Embrace it. It's what makes Peter Peter. His guilt and his responsibility are what drive him, and so far we have no sense of why he does this other than him talking in vague terms.
I missed him a lot today.
I know. I miss him too. But he was there.
I can't help thinking about the last thing I said to him. He tried to tell me something important, and I threw it in his face.
You loved him. And he loved you. He never doubted the man you'd grow into. How you were meant for great things. You won't disappoint him.
Number 4. Reveal Ned Leeds as an undercover Genki Lee who time traveled back from the year 24. I'm joking. Or am I? In conclusion, they'd have to 180 on a bunch of points here, which is difficult when it comes to translating that in a movie, and why I don't think they will. The truth is, people really like this version of Peter, even if it is ripped off of a mixed-race teenager rather than the actual Peter Parker comics. I don't see them changing much when Far From Home comes around, but we'll have to wait and see. Thank you for watching. I promise this is the last Spider-Man video for a while now. I'm taking a slight hiatus as I'm actually going to be spending some time in Cali. Woo! For the next few weeks. So please check out my podcast below as I'll be keeping up with that still. I'll see you all next time.